On the day I signed the divorce agreement, the physician informed me that I had advanced-stage gastric cancer and only 3 months to live. Lucas was accompanying his first love as she tried on wedding dresses, with their laughter emanating from the phone. It was not until I suddenly vomited blood and fell into a coma that he abruptly heard my inner thoughts. "Baby, mommy is coming to be with you." He rushed into the hospital like a madman, grasping my hand. "Are you pregnant? And, cancer?" I shook off his hand and softly said, "Do not delay a dying person's final moments." I gazed at the divorce agreement spread out before me, feeling that these 5 years had been a joke. Lucas handed me the pen, his tone as cold as the bottle of iced water he had bought with the last 10 yuan in his pocket when I first met him. "Sign it," he said. "Celia is back, she needs this position." My fingers were trembling, but I did not let it show. In my belly was our child, 8 weeks along. I had originally planned to tell him today. But now, I just wanted to keep this matter buried inside me. "Baby, I'm sorry, Daddy doesn't want us anymore." Lucas suddenly frowned and sharply looked around. Who was speaking? There were only the two of us in the office. I lowered my head and picked up the pen. I knew why he was in such a hurry. Yesterday, Celia had posted on Facebook, with a photo showing a diamond ring on her ring finger, captioned, "After all the twists and turns, it's still you." I signed my name, Eva. It was neater than ever before. How nice, I would no longer have to get up in the middle of the night to brew hangover soup for him. Lucas pressed his temples, staring at me. "Did you speak?" I put down the pen and pushed the agreement toward him. "It's signed, Lucas." He glanced at my belly. Just that one glance made my heart skip half a beat. But what he said was, "Go for the surgery next week, Celia doesn't like the existence of this child." I looked at him, this man I had loved for 5 years. 5 years ago, when his startup failed and he was sleeping under an overpass, it was I who picked him up and took him home. Now, having achieved success and fame, he wanted to discard me. "That winter, you said, Eva, when I succeed, I'll give you the whole world." "So, your whole world is Celia." Lucas abruptly stepped back, bumping into the desk. "What on earth are you saying?" I smiled, but tears flowed inward to my heart. "I didn't say anything, Lucas. I wish you and her happiness." I turned and left. I could not stay any longer. If I stayed 1 second more, I would vomit right in front of him. Not because I was disgusted by him, but by the self who had given everything for these 5 years. As I reached the elevator, I heard him roar in the office, "Who is it? Who is speaking?" The elevator doors closed, and I finally could not hold on, leaning against the wall and dry heaving. It felt like knives twisting in my stomach. This ailment had persisted for half a year, and he had always known but never asked. It hurt so much, more than the day he realized I resembled Celia. Blood dripped onto the marble floor, resembling small plum blossoms. I wiped it away with my hand and pressed the button for the first floor. Stepping out of the building, the sunlight was blinding. I took out my phone and scheduled a medical examination for tomorrow. Then I sent a text to my mom, "Mom, I'm divorced. I'll come home to live from now on." The phone rang soon after. It was my mom. "Eva, it's good you're coming back. Mom has stewed soup for you." Before she finished, everything went black before my eyes, and I collapsed by the roadside. The last things I heard were the exclamations of passers-by and my mother's anxious voice on the phone. "Mom, I'm sorry." When I woke up, I was in the hospital, with the smell of disinfectant rushing into my nostrils. And 4 drip was inserted into the back of my hand, and the twisting pain in my stomach came in waves, each tighter than the last. "You're awake?" The nurse was adjusting the infusion rate. "The good Samaritan who brought you here has left. You have acute gastric bleeding and need to be hospitalized for observation." I nodded, my throat so dry I could not make a sound. The nurse handed me a cup of water, her eyes filled with sympathy. "Where are your family members? Do we need to notify them to handle the procedures?" "Family? Does the one who just divorced me count?" I shook my head and took the water cup. "I can handle it myself." The nurse sighed and handed me a payment slip. Pay the fee first, then go for a gastroscopy. The doctor suspects. She paused. The situation isn't good. I held the payment slip, my fingers pinching it until they turned white. The amount on it was my monthly salary. Over these 5 years, my money had all been used to subsidize the household. Lucas said his money needed to be invested. How ridiculous, he possessed assets worth hundreds of millions, yet I had to scrape together money for medical treatment. Just as I reached the payment counter, my phone rang. It was Lucas. Where are you? His voice was urgent, with wind noise in the background. Was that you speaking just now? I leaned against the cold wall, the pain in my stomach preventing me from standing straight. Lucas, we're divorced. I know. But I heard your voice. He was almost roaring. Something about not having money for treatment. Eva, where exactly are you? My heart skipped a beat. How could he know? How could he possibly hear? It must be a hallucination, because he hates me too much. Hallucination, I said softly, as if telling myself. You're hallucinating, Lucas. It's not a hallucination. His voice trembled. I can hear it right now. You're thinking my stomach hurts so much, right? And you're also thinking might as well die. I abruptly covered my mouth. These were indeed what I had just thought. The nurse gave me a strange look. Miss, are you still paying? I shook as I swiped my credit card. The balance showed only 3 digits left. What about next month's rent? I couldn't tell Mom, her health is poor. Eva. Lucas shouted on the phone. Are you in the hospital? Tell me which hospital. I hung up the phone and turned it off. Now, even hearing his voice made me nauseous. The gastroscopy results came out quickly. The doctor held the report, brows furrowed. Miss Eva, did your family really not come? I'm an orphan, I lied without changing expression. The doctor pushed up his glasses. Then you need to prepare yourself mentally. It's advanced stage gastric cancer, already metastasized. I sat there motionless. The clock in the consultation room ticked, as if counting down my life. How much time left? With aggressive treatment, perhaps 3 months. I smiled. How ironic, Lucas said to abort the child within a week, but the doctor said I could live 3 months. That's fine, no need for that surgery. Baby, Mommy is coming to be with you. The consultation room door was suddenly slammed open. Lucas stood at the doorway, face pale and drenched in sweat. His suit was wrinkled, as if he had run through every hospital in the city. Eva. He stared at me, his voice shaking uncontrollably. What were you thinking just now? What baby? What 3 months? The doctor looked at him in surprise. Who are you? Lucas did not hear at all. He walked toward me step by step, his eyes terrifyingly red. You're pregnant? And, cancer? I stood up, folded the diagnostic report neatly, and put it in my pocket. Lucas, you heard wrong. He grabbed my wrist with frightening force. I didn't hear wrong. I heard you say in your heart that you have gastric cancer, with only 3 months left. The doctor looked at us in shock. I shook off his hand, the pain in my stomach causing me to break out in cold sweat. Since you've heard, I said softly, then please step aside, do not delay a dying person's final moments. He froze in place, as if his soul had been drained. I walked out of the consultation room without looking back once. How nice, he finally tasted pain too. From behind came his collapsing roar, Eva. The apartment I rented was in an old neighborhood in the north of the city, without an elevator. Climbing to the 3rd floor took me 10 minutes, stopping to catch my breath every few steps. When I opened the door, the aunt from across the hall happened to come out to take out the trash. Eva, your face looks so bad, are you sick? I forced a smile, just a bit of a cold. It was more than a cold, I was dying. Just as I closed the door, I heard the aunt's surprised voice outside, Hey, who are you? Through the peephole, I saw Lucas standing in the hallway, his suit and leather shoes completely out of place. "I'm looking for Eva." His voice was hoarse. "She just went in, she looks unwell." "I know," Lucas interrupted her. "She has gastric cancer." I suddenly clenched my fist. What right did he have to casually tell others about my condition? The aunt gasped, "Oh my God. She needs treatment right away." "I'll make sure she receives treatment," Lucas said. "Please keep an eye on her." I leaned against the door, hearing his footsteps stop outside. "Eva," he knocked gently. "Open the door, let's talk." "Talk about what?" "How to die with dignity." The outside suddenly fell silent. After a few seconds, I heard his suppressed voice, "Don't say that." He really could hear. It was not a coincidence, not a hallucination. I opened the door. He stood in the dim hallway, his eyes bloodshot, still clutching a copy of the diagnostic report. "How did you find this place?" "From the property registration records." He looked at me, his expression pained. "When did you rent this apartment?" "Half a year ago," I said. "The day you brought Celia home." His face turned pale. "That day, he said he had to work overtime, but I smelled Celia's perfume in his car. That night, I found an agent and used my last savings to rent this single room. I needed a place to die, I couldn't die on the street." Lucas suddenly grabbed the doorframe, his knuckles white. "Don't say that word again." "Which word?" "Die?" I chuckled lightly. Now Lucas even wants to control what I say. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his emotions. "Pack your things, come back with me. I've already contacted the best oncology hospital." "I'm not going." "Eva." He was almost pleading. "Don't be willful, this is a matter of life and death. My life has nothing to do with you." I tried to close the door, but he held it firm. "What about the child?" He stared at my belly. "Don't you care about the child anymore?" "The child?" He had the nerve to mention the child? I looked at him and said word by word, "The doctor said, with my physical condition, I can't preserve this child at all." He staggered back a step, as if slapped. "Moreover," I continued, "wasn't it you who told me to abort it? To make room for your Celia." He opened his mouth but couldn't speak. A door opening sound came from across. The aunt poked her head out, glanced, and quickly retreated. Lucas lowered his voice, "At least let me help you." "Help me with what?" I interrupted him. "Help pay medical bills? Or help choose a grave?" I didn't need any of these. I just needed to die quietly. He closed his eyes in pain. "Don't be like this." "Lucas," I called his name, "this might be the last time. We're divorced. What you should do now is accompany your Celia, not entangle with a dying person here." After saying that, I closed the door and locked it. There was no sound outside for a long time. Just when I thought he had left, I heard the sound of him slumping to the ground, and suppressed whimpers like those of an injured beast. "Does it hurt?" "Lucas. This isn't painful enough." I walked into the bedroom and took out the pregnancy test stick I had hidden for a long time from the drawer. It was the surprise I had prepared for his birthday. Now, placed together with the cancer diagnosis, it seemed like an absurd joke. I curled up on the hard bed all night, the stomach pain like a hand constantly stirring inside. It was nearly dawn when I barely fell asleep. The knocking woke me up. It wasn't Lucas's restrained knock, it was urgent, impatient banging. I struggled to get up and saw a delivery person through the peephole. "Eva?" "Delivery." I opened the door and signed for a thin envelope. The sender was the hospital where I had the gastroscopy. Hadn't they already given me the diagnostic report? I opened the envelope, and an appointment slip fell out, "Tomorrow at 9 a.m. oncology expert consultation." The appointment was made by Lucas, with his private number as contact. I crumpled the slip and threw it into the trash. Did he think this could make up for anything? The phone rang, it was Lucas. Did you receive the appointment slip? His voice carried fatigue. I've invited the best experts in the country. Not needed, I interrupted him. Eva. His tone was unusually firm. This isn't up for discussion. I'll pick you up at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I walked to the window and lifted a corner of the curtain. His black Bentley was parked downstairs, the driver's window open. He was holding his phone, with obvious dark circles under his eyes. Had he guarded downstairs all night? How touching. On the phone, his voice suddenly softened. I heard, yes, I guarded all night. I was afraid something would happen to you. Whether something happens to me or not, does it still concern you? Yes, he said urgently. Of course it does. Before he finished, another call came in. I faintly heard Celia's coquettish voice from the receiver. Lucas, where are you? Didn't we agree you'd accompany me to try on wedding dresses today? Lucas's voice moved away from the microphone. I have something now. Celia persisted. What could be more important than trying on wedding dresses? You promised me. I listened quietly, my stomach churning again. How nice, the ex-wife is dying, and he's busy accompanying his new love to try on wedding dresses. Eva, it's not like that. Lucas hurriedly explained to me, then said to the other phone, Celia, I really can't go today. I hung up the phone and turned it off directly. 10 minutes later, I heard arguing downstairs. Looking down from the window, Celia had somehow found her way there, clinging to Lucas's arm. What are you guarding in this rundown neighborhood for? This place is filthy. Lucas shook her off. Eva lives here. Celia's voice suddenly rose. You're divorced. She has nothing to do with you now. She's sick. Lucas lowered his voice. Advanced gastric cancer. Celia was stunned for a moment, then sneered, so what? Isn't it perfect if she dies? I saw Lucas's back stiffen. I drew the curtains, blocking out the farce downstairs. I retrieved the crumpled appointment slip from the trash and slowly smoothed it out. Fine, I'll go hear what the experts say. Even in death, I want to die understanding. I turned the phone back on and sent Lucas a text, I'll go myself tomorrow. His reply popped up immediately, I'll pick you up. No need, I typed. Let your bride wait. After sending that, I blocked him. The arguing downstairs stopped. Through the curtain gap, I saw Lucas punch the car roof. Celia retreated 2 steps in fright and ran away crying. He stood there, head lowered, shoulders slumped. Does it hurt? This is just the beginning. I lay back on the bed, placing the appointment slip by the pillow. My stomach still hurt, but a strange calm arose in my heart. The next day, I arrived at the hospital on time. The expert consultation room was in the top-floor VIP area, completely different from the ordinary outpatient clinic where I had my last checkup. The nurse led me into a spacious room where 3 doctors were seated. Lucas was indeed there, standing by the window, his dark circles even heavier. He had changed his suit, but he still exuded fatigue. When he saw me, he immediately came over. Eva. I walked straight to the chair in front of the doctors and sat down, without looking at him. Who was this deep affection act for? His steps faltered, and his face paled slightly. The lead expert reviewed my examination report, brows furrowed. Miss Eva, your condition is indeed not optimistic. But if we start comprehensive treatment immediately, there is still hope to extend the survival period. Lucas immediately stepped forward. Use the best plan, money is no issue. Dr. Adrian nodded. We recommend hospitalization first, for the first phase of chemotherapy, while I refuse chemotherapy, I said. The room fell silent for a moment. Lucas looked at me in disbelief. Eva, what did you say? I said, I refuse chemotherapy, I repeated calmly. I don't want, in my final moments, to lose all my hair, vomit incessantly, and lie in a hospital bed without dignity. Dr. Adrian tried to persuade me, Miss Eva, chemotherapy does have side effects, but it is currently the most effective. Effective? I interrupted him. Effective means extending from 3 months to half a year? Then spending those extra 3 months in agony in the hospital? Lucas grabbed my arm. Even if it's half a year, it's good. Eva, you can't give up. I shook him off. Lucas, what right do you have to decide for me? Just like you decided for me to abort the child? He released his hand as if scalded and staggered back a step. Dr. Adrian and the other 2 experts exchanged glances. How about this? Dr. Adrian said. Miss Eva can be hospitalized for observation first, and we'll explain the treatment plan in detail. Perhaps after understanding, you'll change your mind. I stood up. No need. I came today just to hear what the experts say in person. Now I know, I'll still die, it's just a matter of sooner or later. I bowed slightly to the doctors. Thank you all. As I turned to leave, Lucas blocked my way. Move. I won't. His eyes were red. You must be hospitalized today. He was still like this, always only forcing me. I looked at him, suddenly feeling very tired. Lucas, do you remember what you said when we got married? I asked softly. You said, from now on, you'd listen to me on everything. He froze in place. Now I won't listen to you, I said. I want you to listen to me. I want to go quietly, without being covered in tubes and death. His lips trembled, unable to speak. I went around him and walked out of the room. He didn't stop me again. At the elevator, I heard something shattering in the room and the doctor's exclamations. The elevator door slowly closed. Does it hurt? Remember this pain if it does. There will be more pain later. Stepping out of the hospital doors, the sunlight was nice. I took a deep breath, took out the painkillers prescribed by the doctor from my bag, and swallowed 2 dry. The phone vibrated. It was a text from Mom. Eva, the soup is stewed, when are you coming home? I tilted my head back to prevent tears from falling. Mom, give me a little more time. Once I arrange everything, I'll come home. Back at the rental, I found the door ajar. My heart tightened. I pushed it open and saw Lucas standing in the center of the living room. He held the pregnancy test I had thrown away, his shoulders slightly trembling. Who let you in? I asked coldly. He turned, his eyes terrifyingly red. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? I threw my bag on the sofa. Tell you I'm pregnant? Then what? Make you force me to abort even faster? I wouldn't. His voice was hoarse. You wouldn't? I laughed. Lucas really has a noble's forgetfulness. On the day we signed the divorce agreement, who said, Celia doesn't like this child's existence? He looked as if slapped, his face pale. That day He tried to explain but couldn't continue. I walked over, trying to take back the pregnancy test from his hand, but he gripped it tightly. Let go. This is our child. He stared at the 2 red lines, as if engraving them into his eyes. It once was. Now it's not. He suddenly looked up. What do you mean? Didn't the doctor tell you? I said calmly. With my current physical condition, this child can't be preserved at all. It will miscarry naturally at some point, or die with me. He staggered a step, holding the wall. Impossible, there must be a way. He muttered, suddenly grabbing my wrist. Let's go abroad. America, Switzerland, anywhere. There must be doctors who can preserve both of you. I looked at the madness in his eyes, feeling only pity. Lucas, wake up. I don't have a cold, I have advanced cancer. Even if Hua Tua were reborn, he couldn't save me. We have to try. He was almost roaring. I can't just watch you. You? I interrupted him. Me and who? This child that can't possibly be born? I forcefully pulled back my hand. Save it, don't perform deep affection in front of me. With this time, better go accompany your Celia to try on wedding dresses. He froze, the pregnancy test slipping from his hand to the floor. I don't love her, he said softly. I bent down to pick it up, walked to the bathroom, and threw it in the trash. Who you love has nothing to do with me anymore. When I came out of the bathroom, he was still standing there, like a soulless statue. Get out, I said. He didn't move. Lucas, this is my rented apartment. Please leave. He finally moved, walking step by step to the door. As he passed me, he paused. That day. His voice was dry. Celia said her depression relapsed and she wanted to commit suicide. When I rushed over, she had slit her wrists. In the hospital, she cried saying she couldn't live without me. I listened quietly, the pain in my stomach requiring me to lean against the wall to stand. So you chose to let her live and let me die? I asked softly. He sharply looked at me, his eyes full of pain. I didn't. Get out. He opened his mouth but ultimately said nothing, pulled the door open, and left. The closing sound echoed in the empty room. I slowly slid to the floor, my forehead covered in cold sweat. This system that had appeared in my mind since my diagnosis never answered my questions. It only coldly displayed task progress. I forced myself up, poured 2 painkillers from the bottle, and swallowed them with water. The phone lit up. It was a text from Lucas. I'm downstairs. I won't disturb you, just guarding. I didn't reply and blocked this number. It started raining outside. I lifted a corner of the curtain and saw his car still parked downstairs, the wipers moving occasionally. Get rained on, Lucas. This is much lighter than the pain you gave me. I drew the curtain and swallowed a 3rd painkiller. The painkiller's effect was worsening. Near dawn, I was fully awakened by the churning pain in my stomach, stumbling into the bathroom, vomiting acidic water laced with blood. The person in the mirror had a pale, ashen face with sunken eyes, like a breathing skeleton. So ugly. This is probably what I'll look like when I die. I washed my face with cold water and decided to go out for fresh air. If I stayed in this small room any longer, I'd go crazy before dying of illness. Sure enough, the black Bentley was still downstairs. The rain had stopped, water droplets hung on the car windows. Lucas leaned in the driver's seat, seeming asleep. I bypassed his car and walked to the breakfast stall at the neighborhood entrance. A bowl of plain congee, I said to the vendor. Just as I sat at the simple plastic table, a shadow loomed over me. Lucas stood by the table, unshaven, his suit wrinkled like pickled vegetables. You can't eat this. He reached for my bowl. Patients need nutrition, I'll have the chef. I held down the bowl, let go. The vendor and other customers looked over. Eva, don't be willful, he lowered his voice. Your body is weak now, you need professional nutritional meals. Professional nutritional meals? Like how you feed a dog? His face paled, and his grip loosened. I lifted the bowl and slowly sipped the congee. The warm liquid slid down my esophagus, temporarily soothing the churning stomach. Lucas, do you know, I put down the bowl. 5 years ago when we were poorest, we even had to share a bowl of plain congee like this. He stood there motionless. Back then, you said when we had money, you'd take me to eat cuisines from around the world. I smiled. Later, when you had money, I was always eating cold takeout alone at home. A nearby aunt couldn't listen anymore and pointed at Lucas. Men nowadays, they turn bad when they have money. Lucas's face looked even worse. I took out 5 yuan and placed it on the table, then stood to leave. He followed behind me, keeping 3 steps distance. At the neighborhood entrance, I finally couldn't help turning back. How long are you going to follow me? Until you agree to treatment. What if I never agree? Then I'll follow forever. I looked at his stubborn expression and suddenly found it laughable. Lucas, do you know? Celia texted me yesterday. He was stunned. What did she want with you? I took out my phone, opened the message, and nearly shoved the screen in his face. Eva, be smart and stay away from Lucas. You're a dying person, don't drag down his future. He stared at the text, pupils contracting. Do you need me to read it to you? I asked. Or are you going to say again that her depression relapsed and she needs company? He opened his mouth but said nothing. See, I put away the phone, this is the person you chose by abandoning me. When my life is on countdown, she texts me to be smart. I stepped closer, looking up at his pale face. And you, who keep saying you want to save me, can't even make her stop harassing me. His Adam's apple bobbed, eyes full of bloodshot. I'll handle it, he finally said. I won't let her disturb you again. No need. I turned and walked into the neighborhood. I don't want to see either of you. He didn't follow anymore. Back in the room, I opened a corner of the curtain. His car was still downstairs, but he wasn't in it. He stood by the car on the phone, face ashen, seeming to be in a great rage. Was he scolding Celia? How interesting. I swallowed the fourth painkiller of the day, watching the farce downstairs. The call seemed over, he slumped against the car, hands covering his face. After a long time, he looked up, accurately toward my window. Even from this distance, I could see the tear stains on his face. I drew the curtains. System, what's the task progress? A semi-transparent line appeared before my eyes, heartbreak value, 65%. Still far off. In the next 3 days, Lucas acted like a madman. He no longer tried to persuade me to hospitalize but directly brought a medical team to the apartment across from mine. He somehow made the aunt across temporarily move out and turned that small room into a temporary medical point. Every morning at 8 a.m., a nurse would knock on time to measure my temperature and blood pressure. At 2 p.m., a nutritionist would deliver liquid food specially made for my condition. At 7 p.m., the doctor would come to inquire about my symptoms and adjust the painkiller dosage. I had refused, resisted, even called the police saying someone was harassing me. When the police came, Lucas showed the marriage certificate. We hadn't completed the divorce procedures, he had only signed the agreement, and the police said it was a family dispute, to mediate themselves. Looking at the expensive medical equipment in the open door across, I felt only irony. Now he knows to cherish? Too late. On the fourth morning, I decided to leave. I packed a simple backpack with only a few clothes, medical records, and painkillers. Planning to slip away before the nurse came. Just opening the door, I saw Lucas standing there. He held an insulated container, dark circles under his eyes, but his gaze was bright. Where are you going? Seeing the backpack on my shoulder, his voice immediately tensed. Going home, I said. To my mom's house. He blocked me. No, you need constant monitoring now. Move. Eva, don't be like this. He tried to hand me the container. This is bird's nest soup the chef simmered all night, drink some. I raised my hand and knocked over the container. The viscous bird's nest spilled everywhere, some splashing on his expensive suit pants. He was stunned. Lucas, don't you understand yet? I looked at him and said word by word, I don't need your bird's nest, don't need your doctors, and especially don't need your hypocritical concern. The nurse across heard the noise and poked her head out. I only need you to disappear, I said. Disappear completely from my life. This is my last wish, can you fulfill it? He stood there like a stone statue. The container lid rolled on the ground and stopped at the corner. I know you hate me, his voice hoarse. But at least let me preserve your life. Once you're better, you can revenge me however you want. Better? How could I get better? I laughed, tears coming out from laughing. Lucas, didn't the doctor tell you? Advanced gastric cancer, metastasized throughout the body, this is a terminal illness, incurable. He stubbornly shook his head, there's hope, Dr. Adrian said new targeted drugs. Then what? I interrupted him. Live an extra month? 2 months? Lying in bed, body full of tubes, relying on a pain pump to get through days? I pointed at the expensive equipment across, look at these things, can they alleviate my pain? No. They only make me remember more clearly, every bit of suffering I'm enduring now is thanks to you. The nurse awkwardly retracted her head and closed the door. Only the two of us were left in the hallway. Lucas's lips trembled, he looked at me with an almost desperate plea in his eyes. Then what do you want me to do? Tell me, what should I do to make amends? I took a deep breath, the stomach pain requiring me to hold the doorframe to stand. You can't do anything, I said softly. Lucas, the only thing you can do is watch me die. This is your retribution. After saying that, I shouldered the backpack and walked past him. This time, he didn't stop me. I walked down the stairs step by step, hearing suppressed whimpers like an injured beast from behind. At the neighborhood entrance, the ride I called had arrived. Before getting in, I looked back. He was still in the hallway, head lowered, shoulders shaking violently. System, what's the progress? Appeared before my eyes, heartbreak value, 78%. Almost there. Halfway, I had the driver change direction. I couldn't go to Mom's like this, she'd be terrified. I found a small motel in the south of the city. The room was old, wallpaper yellowed, but at least quiet. After settling, I turned on the phone, dozens of missed calls and texts popped up, all from Lucas. I cleared the records directly and permanently blocked his number. Finally peaceful. I lay in the motel for 2 days, surviving on painkillers. On the third morning, intense pain tore me from sleep, fiercer than ever before. I crawled to the bathroom and vomited a large mouthful of blood. Looking at the glaring red in the sink, I knew time was short. I forced myself out to buy stronger painkillers at a nearby pharmacy. Just stepping out of the motel, I saw a familiar black Bentley across the street. Lucas got out and quickly crossed the road. He had lost a lot of weight, his suit hung loosely. How did you find here? I asked. He looked at my pale face, expression pained. I searched every motel and hotel in the city one by one. Truly mad. Come back with me, his voice hoarse. You just vomited blood, right? You need immediate hospitalization. I shook off his extended hand, no hospitalization. Eva. He was almost begging. Don't gamble with your life out of anger. Anger? I laughed. Lucas, you still think I'm just angry? I pointed to my chest, here it's dead, died when you forced me to abort for Celia. Now I'm just a walking corpse, what's the difference if it's a day earlier or later? He froze, face pale as paper. At that moment, his phone rang. He glanced and hung up directly. It rang again. He hung up again. When it rang the third time, I said softly, answer it, what if your first love has another depression episode? He stared at me, expression complex, and finally answered. Lucas. Celia's crying voice was loud enough for me to hear. Where are you? I slit my wrists, so much blood. Lucas closed his eyes, call an ambulance. I want you to come. Now. Immediately. She screamed. Or I'll die for you to see. I quietly watched this farce, the stomach pain causing cold sweat on my forehead. Lucas gripped the phone, knuckles white. He looked at me, eyes with unprecedented struggle. Go, I said softly. This time it might be real. He said to the phone, Celia, listen, we're over. Completely over. The other end was silent for a second, then erupted in hysterical cries. He hung up and turned off the phone. Satisfied? He looked at me, eyes rimmed red. Is this enough? I shook my head, not enough. A taxi stopped by the road, I opened the door and got in. Lucas wanted to follow, I said coldly, don't follow me. Otherwise, I'll jump off a bridge immediately. He froze, watching the taxi drive away. In the rearview mirror, his figure grew smaller, finally a black dot. The driver glanced at me in the mirror, Miss, are you okay? Your face looks bad. I wiped away tears that had fallen unnoticed. To the nearest pharmacy. At the pharmacy, I bought the strongest painkillers. Back at the motel, I swallowed 2 and lay on the bed waiting for the effect. The phone vibrated, a text from an unknown number, tell me what to do. Whatever you say, I'll do it. It was Lucas. I replied, go marry Celia and live your good life. That's what I most want to see. After sending, I turned off the phone and threw it in the drawer. The sky outside was overcast, like it was going to rain. System, progress? Heartbreak value, 85%. Just a bit more. The strong painkillers made me sleep nearly 20 hours. When I woke, it was the next afternoon. The stomach pain was temporarily suppressed, but I felt completely drained. I struggled out of bed, wanting to buy something to eat. If I didn't eat, I might not last 3 months. Just opening the motel door, I saw an insulated bag at the door. Inside was warm chicken congee and some light side dishes. No name on the bag. He hadn't given up yet. I kicked the bag aside and slowly walked down the stairs holding the wall. The motel owner called from behind the counter, "Miss Eva, a Mr. Lucas came looking for you earlier. He said he's your husband." "Ex-husband," I corrected her. He looked quite pitiful, the owner whispered. Eyes red, begging me to tell him your room. But I didn't, we have rules. "Thank you," I said. "If he comes again, say I've checked out." Out of the motel, I bought a bowl of plain congee at a corner shop. Just sitting down, I heard the TV in the shop broadcasting local news. Lu Group President Lucas announced today the termination of all cooperation projects with Bai Group. This move caused significant fluctuations in Lu Group's stock price. I looked up, on the TV screen was Lucas. He stood at the press conference, face haggard but gaze firm. "Business decisions are based on company strategic adjustments," he said to the camera. Unrelated to personal emotions. A reporter pressed, "Rumors say your engagement to Miss Celia is cancelled, is it true?" He was silent for a moment, then said, "I am currently married." Other customers in the shop began discussing. Heard his wife has a terminal illness? Not abandoning her now, that's loyal. What was he doing earlier? Waiting until she's nearly dead to show? I lowered my head to drink congee, pretending not to hear. After eating, back at the motel, the insulated bag outside was gone, replaced by a delicate paper bag. Inside were new pain relief patches and gastric mucosa protectors, plus a handwritten note, "These have fewer side effects. Medicine left at the door, use or not up to you." The handwriting was Lucas's, somewhat shaky. I took out the medicine and tore the note, throwing it in the trash. What's the point of doing this now? In the next 3 days, every morning, noon, and evening, warm meals and different medications appeared on time at the door. I didn't touch them once, letting them sit until cold. On the 4th morning, opening the door, I caught him squatting placing an insulated bag. He was startled, dropping the bag. Not seen for days, he was emaciated, suit hanging loosely, eyes full of bloodshot. He opened his mouth but couldn't speak. I looked at the several untouched bags by his feet, those I had thrown outside days ago. "Don't send any more," I said. He lowered his head looking at the cold meals, voice hoarse, "At least eat something, you've lost so much weight." "Can't eat," I said. "Seeing these things makes me nauseous." His body swayed, holding the wall to steady. "Then what do you want to eat?" "I'll buy it." "What I want, you can't buy." "Tell me, I will." "I want the bowl of instant noodles we shared under the overpass 5 years ago." I looked at him. "Can you buy that?" He froze, eyes instantly red. "Eva." "Don't call me that," I interrupted him. "From the day you forced me to abort for Celia, you lost the right to call me that." He lowered his head, shoulders slightly shaking. I closed the door, shutting him out. All day, no movement outside. When I opened at night, the door was empty. He finally gave up. This realization left a void in my heart, and the stomach pain surged again. I squatted on the ground, waiting for this wave of intense pain to pass. System, progress? Heartbreak value, 92%. Almost over. Lucas really disappeared. For 3 consecutive days, no insulated bags or medications at the door. I could finally wait for death alone in peace. But the pain became more frequent, and the strong painkillers started failing. I knew I couldn't hold on much longer. On the fourth morning, forcing my last bit of strength, I wanted to go to the hospital for stronger anesthetics. At least let me die comfortably. Just out of the motel, a black sedan stopped silently in front. Two men in black suits got out, respectful but firm. "Miss Eva, Mr. Lucas invites you over." I recognized them as Lucas's bodyguards. "What if I don't go?" "Mr. Lucas said you must see this." One bodyguard handed an envelope. I opened it. Inside was an equity transfer agreement, Lucas transferring all his Lu Group shares to me unconditionally. He had signed on the signature page. Was he crazy? "What does this mean?" "Mr. Lucas said you'd understand after seeing." I was silent for a moment, then got in the car. The car didn't head to the hospital or villa but to the suburbs. It stopped before a familiar white building, the old one with the basement we lived in 5 years ago, now renovated. Lucas stood at the door, in a simple white shirt and jeans, like when we first met. "What did you bring me here for?" I asked. He looked at me, gaze gentle and sad. "Do you remember this place?" Of course I did. 5 years ago, we were so poor we could only rent the basement of this building, leaky in winter wind, rainy in summer. But back then, every bowl of instant noodles we ate was sweet. "What does transferring equity mean?" "Compensation to you," he said softly. "These 5 years, I owe you." I sneered. "You think money can compensate?" "No," he shook his head. "So I prepared something else." He pushed open the door behind. I was stunned. The basement was fully restored to how we lived back then, worn second-hand sofa, peeling wooden coffee table, even the childish graffiti we drew together on the walls. The only difference was a set of professional medical equipment in the corner. "You." I didn't know what to say for a moment. "Didn't you want the instant noodles from back then?" He walked to the familiar small induction cooker, skillfully boiling water. I tried many brands and finally found the one we ate then. I watched his back. Suddenly a sharp pain in my stomach made me nearly unsteady. He immediately put down what he held and supported me. "What's wrong?" "Pain again?" I pushed him away. "Don't touch me." The water boiled, bubbling. The aroma of instant noodles spread, exactly like in memory. "I know you hate me." He looked at the rolling noodles, voice low. "I don't ask for forgiveness. Just, can you give me a chance to accompany you through this final journey?" I held the wall, cold sweat sliding from my forehead. "Right here, like 5 years ago." He served a small bowl of noodles and handed it to me. "I promise not to force treatment, not to disturb you. Just, don't go alone." I looked at the bowl in his hand, steam blurring his face. It seemed like back to that winter, squeezed in the leaky basement, sharing the last bowl of instant noodles. This thought just flashed, and I saw his hand shake, soup spilling and scalding his hand red. But he was oblivious, just staring at me, something shattering in his eyes. I suddenly understood. He heard that moment of wavering in me. I took the bowl and placed it on the coffee table. "The taste is different," I said. "Just like us, we can never go back." He froze, the light in his eyes dimming bit by bit. I turned, walking step by step out of this restored dream. Each step, my stomach pained like twisted by knives. At the door, I heard the bowl shattering behind, and his suppressed, desperate whimpers. "System, progress? Heartbreak value, 95%. Just the last bit." Back at the motel, my condition deteriorated rapidly. Vomiting blood became frequent, painkillers barely worked. I knew it was time to go back to Mom's. After booking the ticket for next morning, I received a text from an unknown number. "Celia wants to see you. She says she has something important to tell you." I deleted it directly. Now, anything about them, I didn't want to know. But half an hour later, the motel room phone rang. The front desk said a Miss Celia insisted on seeing me and was causing a scene in the lobby. To avoid bigger disturbance, I had to go down. Celia sat on the lobby sofa, still refined and elegant, but face haggard, eyes with a desperate madness. You finally agreed to see me, she said. Say what you have quickly. She eyed my emaciated form, a pleased smile curling her lips. Looks like you're really dying soon. Thanks to you. Do you know why Lucas doesn't want you? She leaned forward. Not just because you resemble me. I looked at her expressionlessly. He never loved you, she said word by word. He married you only because you look like me and happened to appear when he was most down. He told me personally, these 5 years facing your face, he felt disgusted enough to vomit. I clenched my fist, nails digging into palm. Fake, she's lying. He's guarding you every day now, just out of guilt, she chuckled lightly. Once this guilt passes, you'll be thrown away like trash. Just like now, he knows I came to find you, and didn't stop me, right? I took a deep breath, the stomach pain requiring me to hold the counter to stand. Finished? She didn't expect me so calm, stunned. Eva, you. Miss Celia, I interrupted her. Do you know? I have less than 2 months left. She looked at me, puzzled. And you and Lucas, I said softly, will live decades with the sins you've committed. Her face finally changed. What do you mean? It means, I leaned close, whispering in her ear, I'll be free when I die. But you will live in shadows for life. I straightened, looking at her pale face. Now, please get out of my sight. She glared venomously but finally grabbed her bag and left quickly. As she left, I couldn't hold on, leaning against the wall coughing violently, blood taste surging in throat. The owner hurried to support me. Miss Eva, are you okay? Call an ambulance? I shook my head, returning to the room with her help. Just lying down, the phone rang. It was Lucas. I answered, not waiting for him to speak. Control your first love, don't let her disgust me again. He was silent a few seconds, voice hoarse. She went to you? I didn't know. Whether you knew or not, I don't care, I said. Lucas, this is the last time I answer your call. Don't contact me again. Eva, don't. I hung up and blocked this new number too. It rained outside, pattering on the glass. I curled on the bed, enduring waves of increasing pain. After some time, arguing faintly came through the rain. I struggled to the window, lifting a curtain corner. Downstairs, Lucas and Celia stood in the rain. Celia grabbed his arm crying, but he'd her off with force, making her stagger and fall. Get lost. I heard his roar pierce the rain. Don't appear before me again. And don't harass her anymore. Celia sat on the ground crying, rain ruining her refined makeup. Lucas didn't glance at her, turning to enter the motel. I immediately drew the curtain and swallowed double-dose painkillers. As the effect kicked in, the arguing downstairs faded. System, progress? Heartbreak value, 98%. Just the last step. After the effect wore off, I woke in intense pain. Sky not yet light, room pitch black. I fumbled to turn on the light, startled by my mirror self, emaciated, ashen face, like a real dead person. I must leave today. If not, I might really not be able to. Forcing myself, I packed the last luggage and left the key at the front desk. The owner was sound asleep, I didn't wake her. Pushing open the motel door, morning cold wind rushed in, I shivered. The churning pain in my stomach made me hold the doorframe to gasp. Looking up, I saw Lucas sitting on the doorsteps. Back to me, shoulders dude, unknown how long he sat. Hearing movement, he slowly turned. Those bloodshot eyes tightened upon seeing my luggage. You're leaving? His voice extremely hoarse. I didn't speak, trying to go around him. He stood blocking me, overnight sleepless making him look utterly haggard. Where to? I'll send you. Home, I said. Let my mom see me off on the last journey. This sentence like a knife, stabbing his heart. He staggered, face instantly pale. Last journey. He repeated the 4 words, each said with extreme difficulty. No, I've contacted foreign experts. Useless, I interrupted. Lucas, accept reality. He looked at me, eyes with dying despair. What about me? What do you want me to do? Watch you die. This is what you deserve, I said softly. Remember? You once did the same to me. He froze, as if frozen. I continued walking, but he suddenly spoke behind. What if I say the one I love has always been you? I stopped but didn't turn. These 5 years, I fell in love with you long ago, his voice with sobs. I just didn't dare admit, afraid to admit I changed heart, afraid to face Celia. How laughable. When he forced me to abort, when he abandoned me for Celia, he says he loves me. I slowly turned, looking at his red eyes. Do you know? On the day I was diagnosed with cancer, the doctor asked if to notify family. I said no need, because I have no family. His pupils contracted, lips trembling, but no sound. My husband, when I needed him most, was accompanying another woman trying wedding dresses. I looked at him, word by word. From that moment, I considered myself a widow. This thoroughly crushed him. His legs weakened, kneeling down, hands covering face tightly, tears seeping through fingers. Sorry. Eva, sorry. He whimpered like a child. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I quietly watched his breakdown, the stomach pain miraculously lessening. The ride arrived, stopping by the road. The driver honked, urging me in. I last looked at Lucas, still kneeling, shoulders shaking violently, immersed in endless regret. Take care, I said. Then I opened the door, got in, and didn't look back. The car started, his figure in the rearview growing distant, finally disappearing at the corner. System, is the task complete? The last line appeared, heartbreak value, 100%. Near-death first love task completed. I leaned back in the seat, sighing long. Finally, over. Halfway, I suddenly vomited blood in large mouthfuls. Dark red blood splashed on the seat, the driver, scared, swerved sharply, nearly hitting the guardrail. To the hospital. Quick. His voice shook. I wanted to say no need, but consciousness blurred. Last I remembered was the driver's anxious shouts and piercing ambulance sirens. Waking again, surroundings pure white. Heavy disinfectant smell told me this was the hospital. ICU. Life monitors beeping regularly by my ear, various tubes inserted in me. I had no strength to lift a hand. A cold mechanical voice in my mind, warning, life value down to 1%. Near-death first love task completed, submit immediately? I difficultly asked in mind, what happens after submission? Task reward, life restart. After submission, host enters deep coma. If hidden condition met within 72 hours, gain new life. What's the hidden condition? Insufficient permission, cannot inform. At that moment, the ward door slammed open. Lucas rushed in, looking worse than me, the dying, eyes sunken, lips cracked, suit full of wrinkles. Eva. He pounced to the bed, wanting to touch but daring not, hand hovering trembling. How are you? The monitor suddenly alarmed sharply. Nurse hurried in, sir, patient needs quiet. He ignored, just staring at me, don't fear, I found the world's best doctors, they'll arrive soon. I looked at him, suddenly finding it laughable. At this point, he was still self-deceiving. System, submit task. Task submitted. Entering deep coma countdown, 10, 9, 8. Lucas seemed to sense something, grabbing the bed rail in terror. Eva? What's wrong? Look at me. 7, 6, 5. His voice became distant. Doctor. Doctor. 4, 3, 2. Before consciousness fully vanished, I heard his heart-rending shout, Eva. Don't sleep. Please, 1. Enter deep coma. Everything quieted. I floated in void, perceiving the outside but unable to respond. Lucas's voice far and near, like through thick water curtain. Why isn't she waking? He questioned the doctor, voice extremely hoarse. It's been a day. Mr. Lucas, Miss Eva's organs are failing rapidly. We did our best. Impossible. I heard a muffled punch on the wall. Use the best drugs. Best equipment. I'll pay any amount. After chaotic footsteps, the ward quieted. Suddenly, I felt someone grip my hand. That hand trembled violently, palm cold. Eva. Lucas's voice close, with choking I'd never heard. I know you can hear. A warm drop fell on my hand back. He was crying. I investigated everything. He rambled like a drunk. Celia bribed the doctor, delaying your diagnosis. Those cheating photos were fake, she wasn't pregnant at all. He was saying sorry again. Repeatedly, like chanting. I shouldn't have believed her. I shouldn't have treated you that way. The monitor beeped regularly, like timing his repentance. Remember when we just married, you said you wanted a child. His voice suddenly had a hint of smile, but that smile was more heartbreaking than cries. I said wait until the company goes public. Actually, I was afraid I'd be a bad father. My fingertip twitched slightly. He immediately felt it, gripping harder. I visited your mom yesterday, he continued. She cried long. I promised her I'd make you wake. Time passed bit by bit. Nurses came several times, advising rest, all driven away by him. System. He whispered in my ear, the word shocking my heart. I heard, before your coma, you thought of system in your heart. I couldn't respond, but the heart monitor curve showed a small fluctuation. I don't know what it is, but if it's what made you like this. He deep breathed. Tell me what to do. Exchange with anything, my life, my wealth, my everything. Then, the doctor came in. Mr. Lucas, we need to discuss the surgery plan. Say it here. He didn't move. Let her hear too. The doctor hesitated. Miss Eva's condition, surgery success rate less than 10%. Even if successful, she may never wake. Do it, Lucas without hesitation. 100% or 1%, I'll gamble. After the doctor left, the ward fell silent again. He knelt by the bed, burying his face in my palm. Eva, I bet you can't bear to let me lose. This sentence like a key, opening a sealed switch. Hidden condition triggered, sincere repentance and unconditional sacrifice. The system's voice rang in the void. Life restart program activated. The operating room lights stung the eyes. Lucas stood at the corridor end, watching medical staff push Eva's bed disappear behind the door. The door closing sound smashed his heart. Lucas. He turned sharply, seeing Celia somehow behind. She had thinned a lot, face pale, no former glory. What are you doing here? His voice cold as ice. I want to apologize. She timidly handed an envelope. This is evidence proving I faked Eva's cheating photos and bribed the doctor. Lucas didn't take it. The envelope fell, scattering photos and records. What's the use now? He stared at the door. If she doesn't wake, your repentances are worthless. Celia's tears fell. I know I was wrong. I really know. He finally looked at her, eyes empty. Do you know? This month, every day I thought how good if time could rewind. We can start over. Celia grasped like a lifeline. Lucas laughed, the smile uglier than crying. No. I'd detour the first time I met you. Celia staggered back, face draining of color. Then, the door opened. A nurse hurried out, patient massive bleeding. Need emergency transfusion. Lucas immediately rolled up sleeve, draw mine. As much as needed. Nurse hesitated, this doesn't comply with regulations. Drawl, he almost roared. If can't save her, I don't want this life. The nurse, scared by his mad eyes, quickly took him to draw blood. Celia watched his back, finally understanding she lost this man forever. No, perhaps she never truly had him. In the blood drawing room, Lucas watched dark red blood flow from his body, suddenly dizzy. Enough, nurse said. Already 600 cubic centimeters. Continue drawing, he stubbornly said. Draw as much as she needs. In days, he seemed back to that winter 5 years ago. Eva gave him the only hot water bag, her fingers red from cold, but smiling. I'm not cold. How could he be so stupid, treating Pearl as fish eye, true heart as weed? Eva. He softly called the name, like prayer. Give me another chance. The moment the needle was pulled, his vision blackened, fainting. Before coma, he seemed to hear a cold voice in mind. I woke in pure white. No pain, no fatigue, body light as if floating. Life restart completion, 80%. System prompt sounded in mind. I found myself floating near the ward ceiling, clearly seeing everything below. Lucas fainted on the adjacent bed, face pale, arm with hemostatic cotton. Doctor checking him, coma from excessive blood draw, needs rest. Another checking my vitals, miracle. Miss Eva's organ functions are recovering. 2 nurses whispered, Mr. Lucas is crazy, insisting on drawing so much blood. Heard he transferred all his assets to Miss Eva, even made a will. I looked at the man below who nearly lost half his life for me, feelings mixed. Then, a white light flashed, pulling me into pure white space. System appeared as a light pillar. Congratulations host on completing near-death first love task. Task rating, SSS. Reward, new life. Why 80%? I asked. Remaining 20% requires host choice. Light pillar showed 2 options. A. Complete recovery, start brand new life. B. Retain memories of Lucas, but never able to love him again. I silently looked at the 2 options. Choose A. Gain healthy body but forget all pain, including feelings for Lucas. Choose B. Live with all memories but never feel love for him. What kind of reward is this? I bitter smiled. Both options are punishments. This is a test for you too. I looked down at the ward. Lucas woke, first struggling off bed, pouncing to mine. Eva? He cautiously gripped my hand, voice trembling. Can you hear? The heart curve on the monitor steady and strong. He cried, burying face in my palm, shoulders shaking, please, wake up. I watched him, recalling 5 years bits. Those sweet, painful, desperate memories replayed like a movie. I choose B, I said. The light pillar flickered, sure. This means you'll never truly forgive him. I don't need to forgive him, I said. But I need to remember all this. Remember how a woman went from deep love to heart death, how a man went from betrayal to remorse. As you wish. Before white light faded, system left last words, remember, some wounds never heal, but they make you more complete. I slowly opened eyes, meeting Lucas's incredulous gaze. Eva? His voice trembled, like fearing to wake a dream. I looked at him, clearly knowing I'm alive, and clearly knowing that once passionate love had died forever. I'm awake, I said, voice calm enough to surprise myself. He ecstatically wanted to hug, but stiffened touching my gaze. In it no hate, no love, nothing. Like looking at a stranger. Recovery was long. Lucas handed company fully to VP, guarding hospital all day. He learned to stew soup, clumsily blistering hands. He read medical books, noting seriously like a student cramming. But I just watched calmly, no ripple in heart. One afternoon, he pushed wheelchair to garden for son. Eva, look. He pointed to a pair of children nearby. We'll have that too later. I gazed at the laughing siblings, stomach suddenly familiar twinge. Not physical pain, memory haunting. We once had a child too. As this rose in my heart, Lucas's face paled instantly. His hand on wheelchair trembled slightly, obviously hearing my thoughts again. Sorry. He squatted, looking up at me. I know these 3 words are too light, but I interrupted, push me back, a bit cold. The light in his eyes dimmed, silently pushing me back. Back in ward, nurse brought a stack of files. Miss Eva, these need your signature. equity transfer and property deeds. Lucas really transferred everything under his name to me. I took the pen, signing each file. Lucas stood by window, back rigid. After last one, I said, I'll entrust these to professional agencies to manage. He turned sharply, these are all for you. You deserve them. I know, I organized the files. But I won't use this money. He came before me, voice trembling, then what do you want? Say it, I'll give anything. What do I want? I thought of that winter night 5 years ago, warmth sharing a bowl of noodles. His joy hugging me spinning on first startup success. Want that child not yet born. But these, he can never give. What I want, you can't give any more, I said. He staggered back, hitting wall with muffled sound. Then, my attending doctor came with latest report, smiling, Miss Eva, your recovery is better than expected. At this rate, observe 1 more week and you can discharge. Lucas grasped like lifeline, after discharge, where do you plan to live? I'll go back to my mom's, I said. Already contacted local rehab center. Hope in his eyes shattered completely. After doctor left, only us two in ward. Sunset through window pulled his shadow long. He opened with difficulty. Is there still a possibility? I looked at this man I once loved to the bone, clearly knowing the answer. Some loves, dead is dead. Like that child, like the former Eva. Lucas, first time I actively called his name. We're even. He froze like instant petrified statue. Outside, sunset just right. A dead leaf floated from branch ending its life. And we, also ended. Discharge day was rare sunny. Lucas insisted on sending me to mother's. Along the way, he several times wanted to speak but stopped, fingers unconsciously rubbing steering wheel. Company recently developing new project, he finally spoke. Children's Charity Fund. Named after you. I gazed at rapidly receding street outside, no response. No need. Those children needing help shouldn't bear such story. His hand on wheel tightened, knuckles white. Car stopped downstairs mother's home. That old locust tree still there, just sturdier than memory. Mother waited at door, eyes reddening seeing me get off, but holding back tears. Good to be back, good to be back. She repeated, tightly holding my hand. Lucas took my luggage from trunk, standing by car like prisoner awaiting judgment. Want to come up and sit? Mother asked politely. He looked at me, eyes with last hope. I shook head, just to hear. Light in his eyes extinguished. Mother took luggage, turned upstairs first. We stood under old locust tree, dappled light shadows on him. At this moment, he was no longer the commanding Lucas, just a pitiful man who lost everything. In the future. His voice dry. Can I still come see you? I didn't answer. Distant children's laughter came, so vivid, full of life. We both thought of that unborn child. I'm going, I turned. Eva. He called behind. I stopped but didn't turn. If. His voice choked. If redo once. No ifs in this world, I softly interrupted. Only results and consequences. Said, I stepped into the unit door. At stair turn, through window I last glanced him. He still under that old locust tree, looking up at my room window, like this month, what he did every night. But this time I didn't linger. Pushing open door, mother had tidied my room. Windows bright, bedding sun-dried fluffy warm, with sun scent. Mom, I said. I'm back. Truly back. Mother smiled with red eyes, gently hugging me, welcome home. Outside, old locust shadow gradually lengthened. That figure under tree had left unknown when. I took kettle, watering windowsill pothose. Tender green leaves stretched in sun, vibrant. Phone vibrated, bank text. Huge funds from Lucas arrived, note only 3 words, sorry. I deleted the text, put phone aside. Some stories should end here. Some wounds need not be forcibly healed. Sunset afterglow filled room, warm and serene. New life, just beginning.